In this video, Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about dominance hierarchies and why they matter.
There's no denying the fact that the top of the dominance hierarchy is a better place. I got to put one more twist in that. So, you know, the terror management theories and their like basically say that it's your belief system that stabilizes your emotions. And then, you know, I varied that a bit and said, well, wait a minute, it's your expectation desire hierarchy and the match between that in the world that stabilizes your emotions. And that's partly because it does, because you're not freezing to death or overheated or starving, but also because you can sit in a room like this with all the other conformists and feel like no one's going to, you know, stand up screaming and become murderous, which is a really good thing. So, but here's a twist. The twist would be the degree to which the expectancy desire map regulates your emotions and your general response, your general stress response, is proportionate to your position in the dominance hierarchy, right? So it's modulated by the degree of success that you have. And that's an important codicil because it means the integrity of your theory about the world works better, as well as that theory of the world is in fact working well for you, which means you're near the top of the dominance hierarchy. And then it really regulates your emotions as it should, because the environment is less dangerous for you. It's not psychological, man. If you're high in the dominance hierarchy, even in Canada, and you have someone who's sick in your family, they get to see the doctor a long time before someone who has a low IQ and no social connections. And it's not just corruption. You know, there's an element of that, who you know. It's just successful, conscientious people who are open. They have access to all sorts of strategies and plans and ways of figuring things out that people who are at the bottom of the dominance hierarchy, they just can't even muster. Plus, they're way more likely to be taken seriously when they go see a doctor because they're articulate, you know, so it's a big deal. Okay, so then we're saying the degree to which your theory protects you from the world, your theory and its incarnation in the actual world, is proportional to where you are in the dominance hierarchy. And so what that means is that if you ever associate with anything or anyone that lowers your status, you forfeit the protection of your sociocultural confines. And the best way to do that is to associate yourself with someone who is disgusting or contemptible. Now, the next problem, so I think I was thrilled about that this morning, I tell you, because I've been trying to figure this out for like 6 years. I was thinking, how the hell do these things tie together? And I don't think that's absolutely right, but I think it's pushing towards something that's right. But then the problem that comes out of that is, what do you do about it? You know, it's a real bind, isn't it? Because you're just not going to get rid of the damn hierarchies. It's not even clear that you should, partly because, you know, you can be cynical like a postmodernist and you can say, well, hierarchies are just based on power. It's like, that's such a stupid theory that, you know, it's just painful. Some hierarchies are based on power, but a lot of them are based on competence, right? In a functioning society, it's like, who do you want to do your brain surgery? You know, do you want to have the person who really knows how to do brain surgery? Or do you want some person who's just, you know, sort of, they're doing it as an amateur in the back alley? You know, so you're going to assume that there's a bloody hierarchy and that it's based on competence and that you're going to peel from the top. And so they're going to be more powerful, obviously, because they're at the top of the hierarchy, but you're going to be pretty damn thrilled about that when you're looking for competence, which you often are. And to think about all that as power, it's like, you know, really, like live in the world. Some of it's power, but lots of it isn't. So if it's our proclivity to arrange ourselves in dominance hierarchies and our dislike of associating anything that looks contaminated in a disgusting sort of way, and the reason that'll lower our visible status in our own eyes and in the eyes of other people, how the hell do you get people to be tolerant? You know? And the thing is, you're not tolerant. And for all the talk about egalitarianism, I can tell you, the egalitarian thing to do is to date the next person who asks you. And you're not going to do that. And no bloody wonder. So that's a big, and you can talk around that all you want, but you know, we know if you're going to be a biologist about this sort of thing, which is useful, I don't think you should only view people through biological lenses, because our biological lenses aren't very sophisticated. But you know, it's pretty damn hard to argue with the idea that you're concerned, roughly speaking, with two things, and one is whether or not you survive, and the other is whether or not your progeny survive and thrive. You know, and you can just boil that down to the desire to have healthy, competent, beautiful, attractive, successful children. It's like, is that a vice or a virtue? Well, if you can't make that egalitarian, like good luck with the rest of it, it's like smoke and mirrors as far as I can tell. You might be able to alleviate suffering at the bottom of the dominance hierarchy, although even that's much more difficult than you'd think. Because, you know, if you pump resources from the top to the bottom, what happens is the resources fly right up to the top again. You know, it's like pumping water uphill. It's a bad analogy because it's backwards, but you're fighting against a very, very powerful tendency for resources to aggregate themselves in single locations. And I'll talk to you a lot about that when we get to intelligence, because it's like a bloody natural law. It's really hard to fight against, and it's like that inequality is characteristic of all societies, even egalitarian societies. It's really hard to get rid of it, and you're not going to get rid of it in the sexual world. That's for sure. So, you know, I thought about, and we've talked a lot about in this class, in the sections on phenomenology and existentialism, and, you know, this idea that there's something redemptive about living in truth, you know, and that seems to protect people against the worst elements of rigid and judgmental dominance hierarchies. And I think disgust can even get more out of hand when you get arrogant and superior, you know, and you're looking down on the contemptible from a high place of narcissism. And so maybe part of living in truth helps you not fall prey to that narcissistic judgmental tendency, and that'll keep some of this under control. But how to deal with the underlying problem of disgust sensitivity? What are you going to be? Not orderly? That's not helpful, you know. Now, you know, one thing that you might think about is that compassion, which is part of agreeableness, might moderate the judgmental tendency of orderliness. They're not opposites, right? Because they're on different dimensions. And that's kind of one of the liberal ideas. Even though liberals are mostly high in openness and low in orderliness, they're also higher in compassion than conservatives. You know, and the conservatives and liberals debate a lot about the role of compassion. Because the conservatives think you're just being an Oedipal mother, you know, and the liberals think, well, you're just being a totalitarian father. And both of those things can and are true. But it seems to me that there's something about compassion that might serve, at least to some degree, as an antidote for the pathological elements of orderliness, which include, by the way, conservatives, especially the orderly ones, are also much more judgmental. So if you present to them someone who's committed a moral crime, like careless prostitution, say, they will, and you ask them how long that person should be in prison, then the orderly person will say that they should be in prison longer than the person who's disorderly.
Thanks for watching.